All right, this is Human Development, Section A lecture. Our prioritized standards are 4A and B. Objectively, we're going to evaluate the nature versus nurture debate. Developmental psychology studies how organisms change over time as the result of biological and environmental influences. Developmental psychology examines how thinking, feeling, and behavior change through infancy, childhood, adolescence, and adulthood. Developmental psychology also seeks to understand the effect these changes have on sensation, perception, cognition, motivation, emotions, and personality over the course of a human's development. Now, a major emphasis is also on better understanding how the broad influences of hereditary and environment impact development. In developmental psychology, the nature versus nurture debate has been a long-standing discussion over the extent to which particular aspects of behavior and mental processes are the product of heredity and inherited traits, or nature, or environmental and learned traits, or nurture. Now, the general consensus on this nature versus nurture debate is that the development is going to be a process of growth, change, and consistency that's brought about by an interaction of both hereditary and environmental factors. There are going to be some exceptions to that, things like physical traits. Virtually every human, aside from physical traits rather, virtually every human characteristic is going to be shaped by both an individual's biological inheritance and also environmental experiences. Now, while heredity or nature might establish a person's potential, their experiences or the nurture determines how a person's potential will actually be realized. The study of heredity and environmental influences to thought and behavior have been accomplished primarily through twin studies and adoption studies. Now, through twin studies, psychologists have compared identical twins and fraternal twins who were reared together. Now, because identical twins have identical genes and fraternal twins have about 50% of the same genes, hereditary effects should show up much more strongly in identical twins than with your fraternal twins. Now, the fraternal twins essentially are going to serve as a sort of control group in the twin studies, as where you're actually trying to see what happens with the identical twins. Now, twin studies have actually proved valuable information on the genetics and mental behavioral disorders. For instance, there is a strong hereditary link with certain things like alcoholism, Alzheimer's disease, schizophrenia, depression, and also many types of panic disorders. Now, through adoption studies, psychologists compare the characteristics of adopted children with those of their biological and adopted family members. Now, similarities with the biological family are going to point to the effects of nature, as where similarities with the adopted family are going to suggest the influence of nurture. Now, both twin and adoption studies have revealed genetic contributions to a variety of characteristics, including things like intelligence, sexual orientation, temperament, and impulsive behavior. But heredity by itself determines none of our more complex psychological characteristics. Interestingly, some food aversions are actually anchored in genes. So some people don't like the taste of cilantro because they feel that it tastes like soap. So there is a genetic reasoning behind this. Now, while some developmental psychologists believe development follows a gradual and continuous process over time, meaning slow and steady, many believe development happens more abruptly with a series of bursts that are known as developmental stages. So more specific, precise, exact jumps in different types of development. So developmental stages are the periods of life initiated by significant transitions or changes in physical or psychological functioning. Advocates of developmental stages argue that specific abilities such as walking, talking, or abstract reasoning appear at specific ages or life periods because different developmental processes come into play. Now, they find that people go through the same stages in the same order, but not necessarily at the same rate. So just because some people might make the jump from infancy to early childhood based on meeting several different characteristics, doesn't necessarily mean everyone's going to make those huge jumps at the exact same time. All right, that concludes Human Development Section A lecture. Our prioritized standards again were 4A and B. And objectively, now you can evaluate the nature versus nurture debate.